Good morning, welcome back to American Beef Ranch. Today I don't know what we're gonna get into, but we got a bunch of stuff to do as per usual. First thing, we're gonna run check water like we always do, and then I gotta get a bale of hay for my wife again, and I gotta check some cows because we moved some cows, and we'll show you guys that. So let's get into it today. Okay, water looks good, got hay delivered and animals fed for my wife, and now we are in a pasture. Basically now, you can call it the junkyard. We inherited a whole bunch of junk when we bought the place. Anyway, we are looking for some yearlings. There's 15 yearlings out here, and we are looking for them. We want to make sure that they're still in because the fence is not the greatest around this dealio, so we want to make sure that they're all still around and in and where they need to be, and hopefully that is the case because I don't want to chase cows yet today. Okay, I'm not seeing anybody yet. It doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean anything. They've been going in and out of the people gate. That's good. Okay. Oh, looks like they're right down here. Hanging out with the neighbors' cows. Hopefully they just don't cross the fence. This fence looks good. Okay, so here we are, yearlings. So we gotta count them. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and there's a 15th one in that group right there. I'm pretty sure there's one in there. And see, there's a couple of ones in here that are bad eggs. Let's count backwards. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So all our yearlings are in and where they should be. That's good. We will leave them alone and let them do cow things, and hopefully they stay put. There's enough grass in here for a while. There's not a whole lot of grass in here. Unfortunately, you know, everybody's like, oh, we got all this moisture, but here where I live, typically we have native grazing pastures, stuff like this. The grass did not grow at all, and the reason it didn't grow is because it was really cold for a long time, and while we had a lot of moisture, it was really cold, and then the wind blew, so it blew all the moisture out of the ground, and then now that I wanted to take just a minute and talk about the 259 and just my initial thoughts. So I've run newer cat equipment before. In 2020, I ran a 930 loader for at least 1,000 hours, if not more, unloading and loading straw and hay bales. So I'm pretty familiar with newer cat equipment. This machine reminds me of cat equipment, just like the rest of them. And what that means is it's pretty strong, really. Like the hydraulics are good and strong. I'm sorry, picking up more rocks. But the hydraulics are strong, and the interior is simple. There's no thrills on the inside. There's nothing fancy, no extra. Like I said, it's just a simple machine. There's not too much here. So this is about a 75 horsepower machine. It does have the 2-speed and the tracks. I do like the 2-speed. It helps speed things up in the field. You know, simple door here. And then if you climb into the cab, the seal is good. I did notice with the windows shut, it's harder to get the window, or to get it to shut. So it has safety bars. You shut the 2 safety bars. Keys located here. This is the exact same key that like the 930 had a couple years ago. Okay, so then to run the machine right now, the hydraulics are locked and the park brake is on, so you just hit the park brake lever and now we're good to go. So Now we have hydraulics. I like how the machine's set up. We have, on this side, we have forward, reverse, left, and right. On this side, we have all the bucket controls, up, down, and then dump and, you know, lift. We do have automatic connections, quick coupler here. You have an auto ride, you have a fast hydraulic speed, and you have an auxiliary hydraulic switch, which doesn't need to be, well, that can be turned off. The 2-speed is activated by the trigger on the drive side. So if I click the trigger, you see the rabbit comes on, rabbit comes off. Got our lights, hydraulic lockout. I think that's continuous flow for hydraulics and something to do with the tracks, and I'm not exactly sure. And obviously we've got more options. Got our throttle here. We also have a foot throttle, which I don't use at all. Climate control here, and then the radio is located right back here behind your left shoulder-ish. All the dust in the cab that you see is from me not getting the door shut very well. It's worked very well at keeping the dust out and keeping a clean cab. Like I said, I do like, it's very simple. All you do, well, here, we'll give it a little throttle. Push forward on the stick. And like I said, that 2-speed, you just click it. And she moves across the ground pretty good. It is a skid steer, so there's, you know, like no suspension or anything like that. And as far as the hydraulics, I found them, for 75 horsepower, I found them very strong. I mean, I'm sure, like I said, I'm not comparing to any other equipment, but for how small this machine is, I was impressed by the speed of the hydraulics and by how much it can lift. Because this is an 82-inch rock bucket, so it's a little bit big for this machine probably. And I've lifted it full of dirt and rocks, over full, and it still lifts and it still works like it should. So that's good to see. So overall, I am a fan of the 259. Obviously, this is not any longevity or anything like that. I mean, this is a brand new machine. You guys can see, if you can't see, 45.5 hours. So I put 15 hours on the machine. I've got a decent handle on how it works, and I like it. I would not mind, at this point, I would not mind owning one. So hopefully Mrs. Nelson is gonna rent this for another 3 weeks, and we'll keep cleaning up. I'm gonna go over here, we're gonna change some water, because that's what we do all the time, and then we're gonna come back and pick some more rocks for a few more hours, and then we're gonna go get some fertilizer unloaded. So I'm up on top of the hill. The reason that, so when I switch pivots, I have to do it a certain way, obviously. This pivot up on top of the hill that waters, you may be able to see it across there. Its power for the pivot is separate from the power in the pumps. Originally, there was like main line and hand lines and wheel lines up on top of this hill, and so no power was ran with the main line when the main line was ran up here. So it was easier to run from the power line. It was easier to run a separate little phase converter. This is a little guy, a 515, so that means it'll start 5 horsepower, but it'll run 15 at a single time. So like if you have a 5 horsepower pump, it'll start a 5 horsepower pump, but you can have 3 of them. It'll run 15 horsepower worth. You just can't start them all at the same time. Anyway, it'll run this little pivot on top of the hill. And so what I do is I come start it, and then I go to wherever I'm gonna switch water. So that's gonna be the center of the big pivot. So I guess we're gonna warp there. Okay, we are at the big pivot now. So center of our large pivot, and by large I mean it's our biggest pivot, that's why we call it the big pivot. So we just come into the control box here and we hit our off switch, pivot shut off, perfect. Now we have a shared water system, so this line comes in from the pump, it goes to a valve, goes into the big pivot, or it comes over here to a valve, and this valve goes back underground and over to the pivot over there. So all we do, open this valve, shut this valve, and we're good to go. Now we got to go to the next pivot point and start to pivot. So I guess you guys could come along for the ride, but instead we'll just warp there. Okay, now we're to the next pivot. So we're up here at the pivot point. Luckily this wire is not hot yet. As you see, we got water squirting because this valve I just leave open all the time, and I just usually it's when I shut off that big pivot that I turn these ones on. Water is coming out. We turned our power on, so we come over to our control box, open it up, and so forward for pivots is clockwise, reverse is counterclockwise. This pivot needs to go reverse, so counterclockwise. So we turn it to reverse, and I am going to slow it down. I want to finish tomorrow morning-ish, earlier, so slowed it down a little bit, and then we just press the start button and we wait, and we'll hear a switch in there click. So now we're on, and our pivot is moving, and that's how that works. I'm gonna go check. Obviously we're gonna go to the end of this guy, make sure it's moving, looking good, spraying like it's supposed to. I'm gonna drive kind of along it and look at birds. I cleaned birds on the other pivot, so I think this is the last pivot I gotta clean birds on. And I'm not looking forward to it today because the wind's blowing, and that wet and wind just makes it miserable to clean birds. So I think I'm just gonna look. If it's really bad and there's a whole bunch of dry spots, I'll do something about it. If not, like, see that one right there is plugged, and it's squirting water, so I can clean it pretty easy. But I'm gonna clean it, and I'll let you guys watch me suffer. Luckily, when these birds are like this, they're supposed to spin really slow, but when it's squirting water like this, the nozzle's reversible, so I'm just gonna go up there and flip the nozzle, and it's gonna flush itself, and then I can flip it back over. Also can turn it sideways like this, and I can check and make sure that it's clear. Now I see that it's clear. And now you can see that there's streams coming out both sides, and it's slowly spinning around. So that's how these birds work. I like them a lot. This is, I don't know. I think they started making these birds like with the nozzles they use on more than just this kind of bird. So usually there's two kinds of birds used. Most common, there's a stream, like this one, they shoot streams, or there's a droplet, like we call it a wobbler, but it makes like raindrops. We, like I said yesterday, use these ones because it helps fight the wind, we think. And everybody else uses the wobblers. I don't want to be like everybody else, but they do a good job of watering. And we just, like I said, I just usually drive along and check it. I think I'm gonna build a road along this fence. I'm gonna build a road along this fence so that I can access, you know, everything I need to when I need to. And then we're also gonna start putting stuff on GPS, like pivots and things, so that when we switch, like there's one that's, I can't reach that one, or I would work on it. And there's one, but there's at least, there's sprinklers in between them, so I'll have to get those two, probably one on the other side. And then it's funny, these birds that have a shorter drop, they're just to miss some rocks, basically, this rock pile, because it's pretty low, and they actually do pretty good without getting plugged, because I don't know if I've had to crawl up there yet. Yeah, I know I have. I had to clean one, but other than that, they do pretty good. Usually, you know, typically birds that are closer to the towers and birds with smaller nozzle sizes get plugged more often than other ones, which, you know, makes sense. So, and also now that I have more, okay, so I turned off the big pivot, which is a 500 gallon a minute pivot. These pivots right here are 250 or something like that. So basically I'm using less water, I'll have more pressure. So that means our end guns are gonna work good. So I can go open the valve on this other pivot and let it have a little more water, even out the water flow. I can't open this valve all the way because it's only, you know, 700 feet from the pivot point to the pumps. Whereas the water has to travel 2,500, 2,600 feet before it gets to the pivot point on that one. So a lot different, and we can see the end gun on this one's actually working pretty well, and I'm probably just going to leave it alone. Yep, I'm going to leave it alone. There's no reason to mess with that. I have this pivot going awfully slow too, so it's really getting some water. It kind of looks patchy out there. The reason that it looks patchy is the green patches you see are alfalfa, and then the grass is in between it. So the grass is kind of, alfalfa usually grows a little bit better in the spring than a lot of the grasses do. It just depends on the weather and things like that, and our weather has suited the alfalfa pretty well, so that's why you see a lot of alfalfa. That grass will catch up, and this field last year on first cutting produced a lot of hay. So we're hoping to see the same thing this year, but I am seeing more alfalfa, which I'm okay with. It could use a little more alfalfa in it. My customers would enjoy that also. So I don't know what I'm doing next, but you guys can come along. Okay, so I'm at ABR number 2, commonly referred to as the triticale field. We have a short somewhere, and this may look scary. So we keep blowing this fuse here in this circuit. I've switched the coil already. This is a different coil, and it's still doing the same thing. So I'm thinking the coil was fine, which is good because, I mean, I could use the coil still. But I need to figure out if the short is in the box here or if it's out in one of the towers. So I got my multimeter. I'm going to set it to ohms. Ohms measures resistance in a circuit, and it'll also tell you if you got a problem. So I'm going to find a good ground. Let's see, where's... Okay, so we got our grounding deal right here, which should be grounded to the ground. And I'm going to check. So I'm not sure where the short is. Obviously, I'm not a pivot electrician, so I'm gonna have to call somebody to get this guy fixed, unfortunately. So I'll get back on their list. I was on their list, and then I fixed the other one. But I cannot find it in this pivot, and my knowledge ran out. And that happens, and sometimes it's okay to call for help. Back to picking rock. No luck. Anyway, just got off the phone with banker people. I'm telling you right now, if you want to be a farmer and you're going to start out, get your finances in order now, because if they're not, it's a pain in the butt. You know, if I would have taken care of some things when I was a little bit younger, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. But it's going good. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be great. We're still pressing along with our deals. We have several things in the works. Can't talk about none of it yet because none of it's done, but big things coming to American Beef Ranch. Let's go pick some rock. Found a problem with so I'm out here switching water again, because that's what I do. I switch water. Got home from getting fertilizer delivered. It went terribly. I don't want to talk about it. Let's just say it's supposed to be a blend, and it wasn't very blended. It was just kind of thrown in the trailer, so that stinks. So right now I'm reversing this pivot, and then once I get it reversed, we're gonna go look. We got another problem we gotta deal with. All right. We seem to be moving. We'll have to go check down at the end and make sure this pivot's moving. But yeah, let's go look at our problem. So as you can see, the out dive where the water comes out of the ground is a long ways away from the pivot connection. And I don't know why. Jesus. My grandpa thought it would be a good idea to put a slip joint here. But he did. And anyway, what am I gonna do? I don't want to let it just go because it's gonna make a big mess. I can't just turn it off. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm dead honestly don't know what I'm going to do. Anyway, thanks for watching the channel. Please like, subscribe, and comment. We will see you guys next time on American Beef Ranch.